first-time parents, I know that your child is smart and amazing and a miracle and a gift on earth. However, know that that teacher is on your side.
Yes.
They are on the side of your child and they want them to win in the most special, unique way that it works for them.
Well, Jenny, I just want to welcome you to Circle Time Convos. This is episode 3 for us. And so happy to have you here where we're going to be talking all things enrollment from application to walking in the school first day. So I know that you're Chicago's coolest mama, but there may be some others that may not know. Can you start with just telling other people within our community, like who you are, what you do, and how you got that title?
Perfect. So I say I'm Jenny LeFlore and I'm your mama BFF. And what I mean is that I build community around motherhood, parenting, and doing it with a fresh approach. That's where Mama Fresh came in, is that we're doing it our own way.
Yes.
So I've been doing this for quite a few years. That title came from the Chicago Tribune. So I didn't give it myself, but I didn't stop them. When they said it, they report the news. So I just let them do their thing. But what I've really learned throughout the years is that I can be a great gatherer of information and give moms the information they need to make the best choice for your family.
I love it. And I just sense your energy, your passion. It's just exuding through you when you talk about what it is that you do. So I'm excited that you're here today.
I'm excited to be here.
And, you know, we're talking, like I said, all things application from filling out to walking through the door. I want to get your take because here in the Circle, it's really about demystifying information for families, being very transparent. And just like you, we're building this community where families can come and get information around early childhood education. So again, welcome. And I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. I am kind of an early childhood education OG. So I've done this already with my now second grader. We went to pre-K 4, pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. That was during the pandemic. So we were part of that virtual crew.
Oh, wow.
And then we did pre-K 4. And then now I'm back in the ring again because my youngest is 4. So I know what date the applications are opening because it's on my calendar.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad. And so we got to hear from you and your experience because I want to know, I'm sure what you've experienced is what some other families are thinking about as they're trying to navigate this process. So we're going to learn from each other and we're going to pull from each other today.
I'm ready.
So Jenny, since you've been here before, I have to ask you, what are some of the things that caught you off guard? I know you went through the process during the pandemic with your son, and now you're here again. So let's talk about some of those things that you experienced.
The first thing that caught me off guard, but this is in the best way, is that pre-K 4 early childhood education here in Chicago is free.
Yes.
I thought that there would be a tuition base, and I was already planning for a private daycare experience like many families do. So I thought that maybe it would lighten our load, but I had no idea that there was no trick. There was no gotcha, that it was truly free and that every Chicago resident has this right to have their kid in early childhood education. The other thing I think is that how little parents knew about the process. So I have between my soccer moms and my baseball moms and just our neighbors, I have a great network. But there weren't a lot of people that knew how to get their kids into pre-K 4 and where is the information. So that kind of caught me off guard the first time.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's something we hear a lot. We get a lot of questions around what is the cost? And so, you know, within the district, we just completed our universal pre-K expansion. So excited. And so now we have over 15,000 full day seats alone.
Absolutely.
Free. Absolutely free. High quality. Taught by certified teachers within the district. So, you know, I think this is an opportunity for us to share the word. You know, my family in the circle, please, you're going to get homework later, but this is one thing to take note. You're going to be expected to take this information back and share with families that there are free, high quality programs available across the district for families. We also have programs that cater to students with disabilities. We also have programs that cater to students who are learning a second language?
Yes. So when I did visit the website, that was where I started.
Okay.
And so I went to the website and I personally was overwhelmed. I was a new mom.
Yeah.
And so and I had just had my second. This takes me back. I had just had my second. I was trying to put my first in pre-K. So I was kind of overwhelmed with all of the options.
Yes.
Even when I went to the website, all the locations and everything. And I hate to sound old school, but I picked up the phone and called a hotline. And I was so surprised. Someone answered on the other line.
That always happens, yes.
Yes, but someone answered on the other line.
Yes.
That was such a relief.
Well, we strive to do that. We have like a hotline team that service English and Spanish. And so our goal is to always answer. I know that when you call other hotlines, that typically is not the case, but that's not what you're going to find when you call our Chicago Early Learning Hotline. And I'm so glad you said you went to the website first. We try to ensure that our website is a one-stop shop. You can access the information on that site around our application, but you can also apply. And there's also information to share around, the requirements and what, what's needed, and all of that good stuff is housed in one location. And I can see for a new mom, it is a lot of information, and it may be overwhelming, but hopefully we can narrow in on ways to make that better. We also have a segment here where we hear from folks on how to improve our process. So hopefully we'll infuse some of that in this conversation.
I love that it's served later as a hub of information for me. So it was something that it was like bookmarked on my browser because it was somewhere I would revisit if I know, when are the results coming out? When did I need to have that application? So I loved how easy it was for me to constantly revisit.
Great. All right, Jenny. So I know that you've been here, you've been through this process. You seem like you've navigated it with relative success, and I'm happy to hear that. But let's go a little bit deeper into your journey. So can you talk to me about, because I know in episode, earlier episode, we talked about like this tension that families feel and parents feel when it's time to really send their little one off to school. So can you talk a little bit about your emotions or emotions that may have come up for you as you were striving to put your oldest into pre-K?
So like many families, I had a maternity leave at work. And so after I had 6 weeks, they went to a home daycare, which was like a grandma that literally just took care of my baby. And when it was clear to me that he had outgrown that home atmosphere, we moved to a more structured daycare. But it was very family. We went to a co-op style, so it was truly family. We all went. It was a small community. Then you go and visit these pre-K, and often a pre-K can be housed in a larger elementary school. I walked into that campus and I'm looking at 13-year-olds because these are 8th graders. And because you're a new mom, you're thinking at this point, your 13-year-old and your 4-year-old are going to be side by side. What I didn't realize is so many buildings have it structured. This is not their first rodeo. They have it for safety and areas of growth for your pre-K student to really blossom in. But that was hard for me. I was like, this is a campus. This is a big deal. And that was so much different than our small community that we were really just learning numbers and colors. Like my kids was going to big kids school.
Yes. And it's so funny that you say that. My daughter name is Tyler, and she had a similar experience. So we started off at a home daycare. And what I think I love about Chicago is we offer this mixed delivery model for families because, that home daycare setting might be right. Childcare setting might be right. Bringing them into a school-based setting might be right. And so within Chicago, or through Chicago Early Learning, all of that is possible, and families can apply through one single application to identify the right pathway for their child. And so, my daughter started a similar experience. I had some of those same thoughts. So I know that that's what's happening in the community and what we are going to hear from families. And I think you're right on target when you say, schools have been here before. Schools have done this. They prepare their structure. And one of the things that, I love to say when I talk to families who are anxious around putting their child in the school, teachers have been trained, within public schools to work and deal with young children. And so even when you drop them off and you might hear a tear or two, or you might feel like they don't want to separate from you, just continue to bring them, continue to allow them to have access to their friends and teachers, because ultimately that dissipates. And what you will see is that those strong structures and routines that are set up that allow them to build those relationships with other children in the class, that allow them to develop responsibility,
Yes.
right? It's so critical to their growth and development. So then by the time they get to kindergarten, they're regulating their emotions, they're regulating their feelings, they're taking accountability for their learning, and they're making choices about what they want to learn and what they want to experience in school.
That's it. I thought with big kid school, I was like, I don't know what I expected. I don't know if I thought my kid was going to be doing long division, like they were going to have him doing all these things. But it truly was the social emotional learning and growth that we experienced through that first year that I'm really excited to see how this will develop with my youngest. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought up, the social emotional piece. That's so critical in pre-K, and that's really the foundation, right?
Absolutely.
Because if we don't set children up to be aware of their social emotional development, that's going to hinder them as they continue to go forth in their educational journey. I think one other thing that you highlighted is the curriculum, the way that we approach young learning in our early childhood centers is through this project-based approach, through this way of exploring what the child is interested in, and then using that as an opportunity to talk about math skills, and using that to talk about how we will move them along the early reading or early literacy continuum. And it's all through their interests. So even if they're learning about trees, they can read stories about trees. They can count trees. They can graph trees. So all of that learning through curriculum is centered through child experience and exploration.
So funny you say that. One of, I still remember this to this day, one of their science, because I was like, what science are they going to do with 4-year-olds? And it was cutting an apple, and it was analyzing the seeds and the core and the skin. And then they went around to their other preschool classroom and took a survey. Do you prefer red apples or green? And they had to keep a task of who liked what. And it blew my mind at how they were able to do this in an age-appropriate way, but set them up for future academic success later years.
Absolutely. So, Jenny, I have to ask you, what can families do to prepare their child for pre-K socially, emotionally, and logistically?
So I know this might sound weird, but most Chicago public schools have a playground on campus or nearby. So what I would do with my kids is that we went and played at that playground leading up to the days of school. So when we stepped on campus for the first day of school, it was not our first day on the grounds. So we would just get familiar, just playing with that playground, maybe just for 20 minutes, getting back in the car, going home. No big deal. It just gave us familiar things. Carrying around a backpack. There are going to be certain independent things that your child is going to have to do that you can kind of help role play at home that will give them the confidence that they need throughout the day. The third thing is going to come a little harsh for parents, but it's to check your emotions until the door closes. I know it's hard, but your children are really feeding off your energy. And as we all know, a reflection of what we're feeling. So do your best to kind of show up, support to make that trade. Once that door closed, mama, fall to the ground. Okay, girl, give them your best shout. But while they're looking, encourage them, stand in line, all of those things to get them through the door.
I think that's exactly right. And I'm going to tell you, I did not follow what you said when that door closes. I tried. It was like the door was halfway closed and I'm walking like, I'm about to faint when I dropped my little one off. But I agree with all of those. You want to become familiar. We also in the district offer a summer program, which is another way that families can transition and really help to get students acclimated to the school that they'll be going to. So I do want to offer that for families because it's either a 2-week program or 5-week program. It depends on school and age. But I also think that, another thing families can do is really start that routine of sleeping, waking them up early, because sometimes our little ones don't want to get up in the morning. And we want to start off by setting strong attendance patterns
Absolutely.
In school.
That's an old school approach.
Yes.
Remember, like your mom used to be like, we're going to practice bedtime.
right.
Bring some of that back and get
That's
up in the
right.
morning. Not only does it help the little, but your family culture is changing at this point. So it gets you all in a routine to get up, get fully dressed.
Yes.
If they have a uniform, practice that, practice those pants, and then getting up and getting out the door. I think that's really, really great advice as they step into the next place.
And then I think one other thing is too questioning, right? So I remember when my little one was in school and I would always say like, what you do today? Nothing.
Those open-ended questions are something that you're really going to have to think about as you continue on your journey to education. With an almost third grader, believe me, this is something that you have to talk through. Challenge yourself to have to those questions of maybe who did you sit next to at lunch? Who did anyone have on the same color shoe? You also want to be very aware that your child has been, for a lack of a better word, performing for the last 6 to 7 hours, meaning on their best behavior. I know some of the parents will say, they say that he's an angel in that class. And then when he gets out in the car, he falls apart. There's so many studies that really told us that our kids are doing their best to show up academically and emotionally for their teachers and friends. And so when they get to their safe space, which is you, sometimes they need comfort, not an interrogation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's balance in
there. There is a balance.
There is a balance. So, Jenny, we see you in your car, moving all around, dropping kids off.
Yes.
So talk about routines that you drop off routines. So, talk a little bit, help some of our families out who will just be starting this maybe for the first time.
I'm going to hold your hand while I tell you this, parents. Okay. You got to be on time.
That's right.
And I know it's hard. And believe me, for a sister like me, I'm telling you, but you need to be on time, because being on time and even early gives your child a chance to play around, to get acclimated with their friends and kind of hang out. Once you're starting behind, you're already building up anxiety that they're having to deal with before they enter the classroom. You want to get them there early so they can hang out, they can line up properly, they can check the balances so they can get into the door. So starting out with a strong, and we all know that a strong morning routine starts with a strong night routine. So the strong night routine gets you there. So in the morning you're feeling good and you're getting to school early. You want to follow the protocol of the school because they've been doing this for a while, so they know what's best with efficiency and safety. There's kiss and fly. So meaning that you give them a kiss and you let them fly. You let them line up with their friends. You let them chat. You let them line up by order number and everything. And you kind of create a safe amount of distance. You're still within eyesight, but close, so they can go in with their group. But that early start is, I don't think that we really stress about how important that is to get there as early as you can so they can be on time, and then kiss and let them fly.
I love that. I love that kiss and go. I perfected that as my daughter, moved into her first year. And at first, it was hard. You want to hover, but I think it's so important to establish that kiss and go, kiss and fly routine early on, because not only for you, but also for the child, it just builds independence and it builds their confidence. Now, Jenny, tell me a little bit about how do you ensure that there is good communication and conversation and connection between you and your child's teacher? I know that's something that some parents are probably thinking about. How do I establish that?
You want to take advantage of all the programs that your school has. So when you were talking about the summer preview that some of the schools have, if they have that, attend. If they have an open house, a family palooza, whatever fun and name that principal and admin team have worked very hard to put on, attend those early things. Even if you're like, oh, this is going to be our first year. Attend those things because you get to meet your teacher in a more relaxed environment. Yes. Ask them, do they prefer that if I'm dropping off supplies, would you prefer if I bring it to the opening picnic? Does that make it easier for you? It really sets a great tone because it lets them know I'm here and I'm ready to be a helper. This is also a hack. If they're sending, you're going to get communication from your teacher before the season starts, before the school year starts, reply. I know it sounds like a small thing, but these teachers are sending emails and sometimes they can feel like they're sending them out to a black abyss. So even if it's like, sounds great, can't wait to see you on first day, that builds a rapport with your teacher before you enter in. first-time parents, I know that your child is smart and amazing and a miracle and a gift on earth. However, know that that teacher is on your side.
Yes.
They are on the side of your child, and they want them to win in the most special, unique way that it works for them. So I think when you go in there with that mindset that this teacher is on my side, we both want the same things, I think that kind of dissipates any tension that you might have and lets you know that you're going in with the right mindset.
I agree. And as a former pre-K teacher, I understand that it's a difficult time for families to sometimes separate. And so, I agree with everything that you're saying because, as a teacher, we know that families only want the best.
Yes.
And so we want to be able to over communicate. So it may seem like in the beginning, we're sending a lot of stuff home, but we're trying to gather and fact find and learn as much about your child and your family so that we can build too that relationship with you. And I think, doing what you're describing, thinking about it from a teacher perspective, we'll meet in the middle and have a great relationship.
Have confidence in their skills. So many of these pre-K teachers have been doing it either way. Either they've been doing it for years or you have someone that is kind of fresh out of school full of ideas. Yeah. And I've had both, and there's so advantages of both. I'll tell a short story. When my son took tennis at 5, and this was like his first thing, his like big boy thing. I thought he looked so cool. I had him with his polo shirt. And this teacher, he had been coaching. Kids he had been coaching were in college at that point. Okay. And so I wanted to stand back like in the parent section, but he's my 5-year-old. And so after 3 lessons, I go, I'm sorry, Coach D, I don't know if he told you, but he's left-handed. And he told me, I know. And I go, well, I don't know if he goes, I put down a ball and I tell the kid to pick the ball up. Yeah. And I see what hand they pick it up with, and that's how I know. He already had this routine that he had worked throughout the years, and it was a surefire hit, and of course he already knew it. So have confidence in the skills of your teaching and admin staff. And I say admin staff because it's truly a community. Once you enter a pre-K, you're becoming part of the community of the school. So you'll get to know that front desk person, you'll get to know the assistant principal, even the security. So be open to all of that and really embrace the community aspect of the school.
I love that because one of the things we've been working on in the district is really bringing PK into the broader school. So it doesn't feel like pre-K is this isolated program to the side. No, pre-K is a part of the preschool to 8th grade elementary community, like you just mentioned. That's so wonderful. Thank you so much for your knowledge and just for sharing your experience with us. I know it's going to help so many families that are coming into the circle to do just that, hear and learn from others. So I appreciate you so much.
And thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
I know. This is good.
I'm in the circle now.
All right, Jenny, before we wrap up, we're going to play a quick game, which I love, red light, green light, and we're going to demystify some truths here.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, so we're going to use these paddles to give us indication on what's true, what's maybe somewhat true, and what is completely false.
Ready.
So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want to hear how you gauge the answers based on what paddle you pick up.
Sounds perfect.
All right, so the first question is, do you think it's true that you can only tour a school after you receive an offer?
I think that's false.
I agree. Yes! It is false. Tell me why you think that's false.
Okay, so I love pre-K week, which is I am a big fan of pre-K week.
Yes.
And so this is like an open house, and it's an open conversation so that they give families a look in of what pre-K will look like for those schools. So you can take advantage of pre-K week and you can go and visit and see what it's all about.
You know what? I didn't even know you were going to say that, but that just makes my heart, because we've worked so hard to get families to know about pre-K week. It is an opportunity for you to tour schools before you even apply.
Absolutely.
And get a sense of if that school is right for your child and your family. So I am so excited. So that is completely false.
Completely false. You're looking at black and white. You're going to be looking at a lot of numbers. Get in there. See what the culture is like.
Yes.
See how long it takes you to drive from your home. Get in there and really see that. And that is through a visit.
That is through a visit. And that's one of the things we encourage. And we have lots of schools, lots of community-based organizations that are offering tours throughout the year. So yes, you want to pay attention to pre-K week, but you also want to tap in and connect to schools that you're interested in knowing more about so that you can get a sense of what that school has to offer.
Love it.
Yeah. So next question.
Okay.
All right. Applying through the initial application period guarantees your child a spot in their preferred school. Initial application period. Yeah. Why do you say that?
You know, preferred school. It's such a you're giving rankings for a reason.
Yes.
So even though you were saying there's 15,000 seats, there are more than there are Chicago residents here. So where you're finding a school that hopefully will be on your list, there are times where you won't get your first. I've been on that side of it as well. Yeah. So you might not get your first choice in school. So it's not a guarantee. And I love that we're having this conversation now so we can have realistic expectations of what this process looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think, what families have to too understand is that we know that there are so many seats available within the district, but what you aren't privy to is how many 3-year-olds that we have. So it's 15,000 4-year-old seats or full day seats. But we also have another 5,000 or so 3-year-olds that are coming up into some of those seats. So, you may be waitlisted and you may not get a choice at your preferred school, but know that there are other options available. There's over 377 schools that offer pre-K programs across.
Don't get deterred by the wait list, y'all.
I'm a
waitlist queen. Keep the phone by. Watch the updates.
Check your wait list. Check your notifications. Wait lists are always moving. We talked about this in our last another episode where we talked about wait lists shifts and changes every night. So every night there's an opportunity for you to move. And if you don't, call the hotline, find you a place where you can move and remain on the list for your other sites.
I love this.
All right, Jenny, last question.
Oh, I'm ready.
Families are asking, do you have to complete both the online application and paper application in order to enroll your child in pre-K? Red. All right, tell me why.
Easily just visit the website online. But I do have a question. Okay. If people don't have access to the internet at home, can they go to the library or can they help and have it filled out on the hotline? How does that work?
Yeah. So they can do all of the above. So one, I do want to clarify for families, there is no paper application.
Okay.
There is only an online application to apply for pre-K. And just like you said, if you may have technology challenges or may not have access to technology, you can go to your nearest elementary school. And again, there's over 377 with pre-K programs. You can go there to get support. We have a partnership with our wonderful partners at Chicago Public Libraries where we have 10 sites where families can go. You can apply there. You can also call the hotline, Chicago Early Learning Hotline, and they can help you complete the application over the phone. They have English and Spanish staff ready to assist you. And then you can also complete the application online through our chicagoearlylearning.org website.
So there are a lot of options, but paper's not one of them.
Paper's not one of them.
Now we know.
Well, Jenny, that was so much fun. I love that game. I just have so many fun memories of that game. So, this has been such a great episode. And I give families homework and I give it to them in a take-home folder.
Love this.
Love it, right? So we got every good teacher gives homework. All right. So, families, today your homework is to only start. Start the process, connect with the school, explore your options on chicagoearlylearning.org, connect with a family member, friend, colleague, auntie, cousin, neighbor who has experienced the process. Yes. So just move towards enrollment and applying in any way that's possible. You can also visit us at our Chicago Family Resource Centers Chicago Early Learning Family Resource Centers, or also call the hotline just to nudge and just to get the process started.
Just start.
That's
start.
it. And so, Jenny, I just want to thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Sharing your knowledge with us today. And I want to, maybe next time we get some of those cool moms, the other cool moms, you bring them with you.
Oh, I roll deep. You got it. No problem.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.